Gerard today, and we're joined by a former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. His new book is out now, Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. Mr. Speaker, it's great to see you. Thank you, as always, for your time coming on my show.
Well, listen, it's great being with you, and I'm delighted to have this chance to be with you in Mississippi, which is a little different than your normal place.
Right. The book has been a huge success already, top 5 on a lot of charts. Obviously, I think America loves a great comeback story, which is why it's so strange sometimes to see all of the criticism that Donald Trump has to endure.
Well, I mean, this is one of the greatest comebacks in American political history. Only Grover Cleveland in 1892 regained the White House after losing it. Nobody before Trump had defeated both a president and a vice president in the same year. And Trump, of course, survived 2 impeachment attempts, the CIA and FBI senior leadership breaking the law to try to destroy him, 4 efforts to put him in jail, and 2 assassination attempts. So, you know, this is somebody who really has made an amazing comeback under very challenging circumstances.
And I really think that this term is a transformative moment for America and certainly for the Republican Party, which has also been a challenge along the way. We're seeing it today, and I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, will kind of weave back and forth between some current events, some current headlines, and your book, because they're really intertwined. But, you know, Donald Trump is even facing opposition from within his own party in every election as well.
Well, I think that's right, and it's partly because he is such a transformational figure that he challenges the core beliefs of some of the older Republicans who came out of a different world and represent a different coalition. I mean, Trump really is the emergence of a populist, blue-collar, working American majority that cuts across all ethnic lines. He has the largest Hispanic support of any Republican in history. He has the largest African-American male vote since Eisenhower in the 1950s. He is the first presidential candidate on the Republican ticket to get a majority of Catholics. And interestingly, his support among people under 25 is very strong. There's an underlying profound change going on in America as we move away from a kind of socialist, radical Democratic Party personified by Mandami, who just won the New York mayor's primary and who is an outright explicit socialist. And I think a lot of people are becoming Republican in part because they can't imagine being a Democrat anymore.
Well, and you kind of stole my next question, because I was talking about the New York mayoral race earlier. I think part of Trump's success, despite his wealth, is that we perceive him as being authentic. And I mean, we saw this in the press conference yesterday morning where he lost his cool over Israel and Iran and said they don't know what they're doing. That's very authentic. And Mamdani in New York, despite his radical left policies, has embraced them in an authentic fashion that I think many Democrats have struggled with over the last 8 years.
Yeah, I think what you have is a decaying Democratic establishment personified maybe by Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, who just looks like they're out of it. They're no longer relevant to the world that's emerging. And what you're seeing happen on the left, led by Bernie Sanders and AOC and a group of very, very left-wing members of Congress, and now by the next mayor of New York City, is you're seeing the rise of a very energetic left-wing populism that embraces radical values, that is for very, very high taxes, for the government doing even more than it's already doing, and for very radical social values. And that coalition is now probably the most dynamic part of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier. I think someone like Senator Schumer should be scared to death of Mamdani or AOC because their establishment on the Democrat side is effectively challenged now.
Yeah, I think people have concluded that the old Democratic Party establishment is corrupt, it's tired, has no ideas that work, and it is appeals to sort of a labor union, lobbyist, left-wing interest group, while ignoring the average American. I mean, it's very important that one of the great reasons Mondami did as well as he did in New York is that he was campaigning on affordability in a city which, for example, rent has literally become unaffordable for young people. I mean, it is amazing how expensive New York has become, largely because of a combination of bureaucracy and labor union work rules. But nonetheless, for the average working person in New York today, life has become very expensive. And Mondami came along and said, I've got some real answers. We're going to have for example, he wants the government to run grocery stores. Now, given everything we know about government efficiency, the idea that the New York City government should try to actually run grocery stores strikes me as sort of mildly crazy. But in New York, there's a very large block of people who are genuinely socialists, and they really do believe in big government, and they really are against private enterprise. So, they voted for a guy who says, for example, that taxpayers are going to pay for free buses. So you'll be able to get on a bus in New York for free because the taxpayer is paying for it. And he basically suggests that he's going to tax the billionaires, and New York has more billionaires than any other city, without realizing that you make it very expensive. They all go to Florida. I mean, billionaires are not tied to any one city. They have the resources to go over. And so it's interesting when you deal with socialists, they always describe this wonderful thing they're going to get done without ever thinking through the consequences of trying to do it and the fact that the world is much harder than they think it is.
Well, and even such as a $30 minimum wage, which he has proposed, and what that would do to the cost of living in New York. And something he had the power to do as an assemblyman and does not have the power to do as mayor. But I don't want to spend the whole time talking about New York's mess. Speaker Newt Gingrich here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Trump's triumph is not a biography, but really it's a look at the future of America and the priorities that you see in the Trump agenda that could really shape that future.
Well, I wanted to, last October, it became obvious to me that Trump was going to win. And I wanted to write a book which both put his political victory in historic context and said, given everything we know about what he believes, and I'd been working with the America First Policy Institute, both Callista and I had been helping them, and they were sort of the heart of the Trump think tank. And so I had a pretty good sense of where he was going to try to go and what he's going to try to do. And I tried to put that into the new book, Trump's Triumph, because I wanted to share with people that there is a lot of purpose to what he's doing. I mean, this is not just random energy. This is an effort to reshape the American economy so that we become, once again, the most prosperous and the most successful economy in the world. And I think if you watch him, I mean, he's working very hard to achieve just that.
How do the influence of people like Elon Musk, who just as an example, initially supported and then later criticized the One Big Beautiful Bill. Are these tensions productive for the Trump administration and for his managerial style?
Look, I think in the case of Musk, they had about 3 good months, and it's a little bit like watching teenagers. They're both very big egos. And Musk is the richest guy in the world. And when ultimately, and actually about 5 months, because it started really in November, ultimately, I think Musk had to collide with the reality that no matter how rich you are, Donald Trump's president of the United States. And the president of the United States has vastly more power and vastly more legitimacy than the richest person in the world. And I think when Musk collided with that reality, his feelings got hurt, and he threw kind of a temper tantrum. I think he posted 40 things on X in one day. Now, since then, he's calmed down.
Which is on par with Donald Trump at times.
That's right. No, that's right. I mean, you had 2 really strong personalities colliding in public. But I think they're beyond that now. I think Musk did bring a lot of energy into the system. And I just talked to some people yesterday who were shocked at how much money was going to various and sundry dumb ideas, and that Musk had kind of pulled back the curtain and allowed you to begin to see how much of the left is financed by your tax dollars. And in that sense, he provided a real service. I mean, his greatest service, frankly, is the development of SpaceX, which has reduced the cost of putting satellites into Earth orbit by about 90%. It's an amazing breakthrough. And I have great respect for Musk, but he didn't understand much about politics and government. And it's a very different business than being an entrepreneur in a privately held company.
And I think that's the same challenge President Trump encountered during his first term. We'll get into that some more. I want to talk about the big, beautiful bill, your experience as Speaker, and what the current Speaker is doing to get the bill passed and the agenda passed. Newt Gingrich, Trump's triumph, America's greatest comeback. More with Speaker Gingrich next on SuperTalk Mississippi. We're speaking with former Speaker Newt Gingrich, who puts out books faster than I can read them. The new book is Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. Mr. Speaker, always great to have you on. Thanks for sticking around another segment. In Trump's Triumph, you talk about Donald Trump's ability to unify the party, to unify a really fractured GOP, as we've kind of seen with the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill, which will hopefully come soon, and really a difference in styles between President Trump and Speaker Johnson. How have the two been able to work together, especially with your experience as former Speaker?
Well, look, I think Mike Johnson has probably the hardest job in Washington. He has only a 2 or 3 vote majority, and on any given day, he's got 6 to 15 Republicans in rebellion. So he's got to get up every morning and try to figure out how, a little bit like fishing, how am I going to reel them back in? How am I going to convince him to be on the team? But he has enormous strengths. He's very deeply Christian, and that allows him, I think, to be calm and have a sense of faith in circumstances which would drive normal people crazy. I've told him I thought his job was like the book of Job, that he gets up every morning and people come in his office all day long to complain, to demand, to try to blackmail, and he just calmly listens to all of them. He's very, very smart, which is a big asset. And gradually he pieces it together. And so far what's happened is he'll get to within 95 or 97% of what they need. And then Trump has to come in for the last 3 to 5%. And Trump gets to the last holdouts, communicates forcefully, and they go, okay, I'll go with you. And they've so far in the House had an amazing run of passing things that looked like they were not going to get there. And then at the last minute, it came together. The Senate is a little different, but the Senate has on the big bill, that what Trump calls the big beautiful bill, which is technically called reconciliation. It's a very strange rule in the Senate, because that's the one bill you can pass with a simple majority. So there are 53 Republican senators. 3 of them can vote no, which gets you to 50-50, at which point the vice president can cast a deciding vote in favor. So they have a little margin for error in the Senate, but the Senate also has a whole different set of perspectives and concerns. And I think, as we're talking right now, I think it's very likely that Saturday or Sunday, the Senate will pass the bill and send it back to the House. At that point, the challenge for Speaker Johnson and for President Trump will be, can they get the House members to decide they will accept the Senate version so that they don't have to go to a conference and try to write it a third time? I suspect they'll get it, they'll pull it off, but it's going to be a real high wire act. I mean, nothing is guaranteed as of right this minute.
Well, and that's what makes this so challenging. And you're right, Donald Trump has been the consummate closer in deals like this, because it's been, for so many people, political suicide to challenge and go against the Trump agenda. Well, but there are fiscal hawks, especially on the Senate, that seem to be doing that. We're talking about Rand Paul, Ron Johnson, Thomas Massey, that have concerns over the spending, the debt ceiling, right, which I think most of us as conservatives don't like to see, this out of control spending in Washington, and we hate to see our national debt continue to rise. But the debt ceiling debate comes up every few months or a couple of times a year, always gets raised anyway. By eliminating that conversation, you take the debate out of the equation.
Well, I think that they should move towards a long-term commitment to get back to a balanced budget. As you know, when I was Speaker, I offered the only 4 consecutive balanced budgets in the last 100 years. And we did it. It took 4 years. And this is one of my points to people negotiating this bill right now. This is step one. We inherited from Biden such a total disaster in spending that turning it around, you can't turn it around in one bill. You nudge it, then you come back with a second bill, then you come back with a third bill. And over the course of a probably 3 or 4 years, we can really move to a balanced budget. But this is an important very first step. It has very big tax cuts. And let me remind you, the way the Congressional Budget Office scores things, they understate spending so liberals can get to spend more. And they overstate the cost of tax cuts so conservatives have a hard time justifying cutting taxes. I was with Reagan in 1981 when we passed the 3-year tax cut. That launched a boom which lasted for 20 years. And economic growth does amazing things for your deficit. So I'm a big believer we can get this done. And I think I have a pretty good conservative fiscal record. But also, speaking as somebody who did balance the budget, I'm pretty confident. Give us time, and we will, in fact, get to a balanced budget.
Why don't we have, obviously there's an entire conversation about a balanced budget amendment, but is this just a matter of the members of Congress not wanting to do their job as you forced them to do as Speaker?
Well, it's interesting. You know, we had in the contract with America in 1994, we had a balanced budget amendment. We actually passed it in the House. We had, I think, 306 votes, and you needed about 290. Because constitutional amendments require 2/3. When we got to the Senate, we lost by 1 vote. We had 66, we needed 67. And we sat down over dinner one night and said, you know, if you have 66 who voted for a balanced budget, and you have 300, I think it was 309 who voted for a balanced budget, what if we pretended that it passed? And in the balanced budget that we offered, it said we would balance it within 7 years. And so we literally, this was the Republican leadership in the House. We had dinner, we talked about our senior staffs were there, and we said, all right, does everyone agree? We are going to balance the budget because we're going to pretend that the amendment passed. And they all said, yes, we're going to do that. Well, the next week, John Kasich, who was the budget chairman, came in. He said, guys, this is really going to be hard. Can't we do it in 10 years? Because we had said 7, and the bill had said 7. And so we talked a while. We had a vote. Everybody but Kasich voted for 7. And the week after that, we gave him a marble plaque for his desk that said balanced budget 7 years. Well, the fact is, once we started working on it, we balanced it in 4 years. And we balanced it for 4 straight years. When I left office, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, gave a speech saying that they thought we would probably pay off the national debt by 2009. And that the Federal Reserve was studying how do you manage the money supply if there's no debt. And then, frankly, the people who follow me didn't get it. And we went back to the current stupid model of spending more than you're taking in. But you can balance the budget, and you can have a dramatically better economy, much less inflation, dramatically lower cost of interest payments on the debt, and it becomes a virtuous circle.
Mr. Speaker, if only what had been, what we would be living under if things had been different. Speaker Newt Gingrich here on SuperTalk Mississippi. The book is Trump's Triumph. In the limited time we have remaining, I know that you've praised Trump's decisiveness, especially most recently in the U.S. strike against Iran. How does this, and base this on Trump's triumph on your book, reflect his peace through strength doctrine?
Well, I think it precisely reflects it. Look, he and Reagan both had the same approach. Build up your military, be so powerful that nobody wants to threaten you. And when you do have to act very carefully. So in his first term, for example, he wanted to send a signal to the Iranians that we were not going to tolerate some of their terrorism. So he killed one person, General Soleimani, and he was the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. That shook the Iranians so badly that they backed off, and for the rest of Trump's first term, they were relatively quiet. He said for weeks, I would really like to negotiate. I'm going to give Iran 60 days to negotiate. But he had said for 20 years, back when he was a businessman, Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. We cannot tolerate it because it's a mortal threat to us. So if you believe in defending America, you cannot allow the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon because they chant, since 1979, they have been chanting death to America, death to Israel. And as recently as 3 or 4 months ago, the Ayatollah Khamenei went on national television and said, I want to promise you that death to America is not a slogan, it's a policy. Well, so Trump took them seriously, but notice how he did it. First of all, he gave them 60 days. And he kept saying, I really hope we can negotiate. On the 61st day, the Israelis attacked. Now, I'm personally convinced that Netanyahu and Trump had basically said, if we can't make progress in 60 days, go ahead and get them. He then said, all right, I'm going to be patient and wait because I really hope we can get to a truce. And then he did something.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry.
We're out of time,
well,
but I really
it's
enjoyed
great
these
to have been
with you.
Great.
Former Speaker
it's great
Newt
talking
Gingrich.
to you.
The book is Trump's Triumph, America's Greatest Comeback. It's available now, already a bestseller. Speaker, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much.
Good to be with you, Scott.
More continues. Scott Sands in for Gerard Gibbert on SuperTalk Mississippi and streaming everywhere at supertalk.fm.